Bum bum bum, literature gets a look. Legs talk about books. And welcome back to Legs Talk About Books, the monthly literature podcast where we talk about books. I'm your host, Hardleg Joe. Joining me today, regularly scheduled co-host, CB Radio.
That'd be me.
And also, not so regularly scheduled co-host, Mr. Bard Breaker.
I apparently need fiber to help with my regularity.
You brought it back. For a second, I thought you were going to be completely random, but it checks out. You can tell it's a bit late. We're a bit goofy. This is for the holidays. It's for every month for December. Not every month. Every year for December. Because December is so hectic, we usually do graphic novel month. Because graphic novels, even though there are some really long ones, they're usually easier to read, less words, less pages, more pictures, pretty pictures to look at.
And the symbolism is usually like
a little bit more on the nose or whatever. And this year we decided to do Kingdom Come, which is written by Mark Waid with art by Alex Ross, which if you don't know is kind of like a superhero story. There's probably like a picture on the screen.
I think they'd figure that out from the picture of Superman on the cover, Joe.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. His logo changed. They got it different. He looks more like Slash Man.
It just means hope. So it's Hope Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. But yeah, so we're here, and if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the show, basically what we do is we're gonna give our spoiler-free thoughts at the beginning. So if you haven't read this and you kind of want to know what we think about it, there's your chance for that. And then after we do that, the rest is just going to be like, we're either going to assume that you've already read it or that you don't fucking care. And we're just going to go in. We're not going to give a synopsis, though. So if you haven't read it, fuck you. You're lost. At this point, this is like more than 20 years old. You could find this online, like Google search Kingdom Come comic pretty easily. Just make sure you spell come right. Otherwise, you get to the wrong side of YouTube. That's a very different thing. Make sure it's by Mark Waid and has Superman on the front.
I gave Jeff Bezos money to rent or buy it through my Kindle app.
I thought you were going to say something else about what just...
I wouldn't give Jeff Bezos that.
He already owns it, probably.
And I bought this a while ago. This has been one of my favorites. I bought it, pretty much just for the art because, if anything, spoiler-free thoughts, the art in this is fucking, like, astounding. The whole thing is like an oil painting. Like, holy shit, some of the most realistic art. Which, to be fair, realistic isn't always better, but for this kind of story, I think it fits pretty well.
I would say more like cinematic realism in the sense. It's not you're not getting, like, faces directly on. Usually they're covered, like, you have shadows over the eyes and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, like, Alex Ross has yet to have made a picture, and this book is entirely filled from page to page with them, that has not made me internally weep at the art. It's just so frigging beautiful. Yeah,
it is. He's usually known for his covers, so it's like amazing that they got him to sit down and they're like, would you do an entire comic book in your style? Like, I'm really curious as to how long this took him.
I feel like Alex Ross could literally draw a picture of Batman taking a shit on the toilet and it would sell for billions just because of how good it'll look.
Probably not billions. Very little art.
No, the NFTs will go for billions.
Yes.
After someone copies it off of DeviantArt.
I was over-exaggerating with billions, but it would definitely sell like hotcakes for no damn reason.
It would be really epic. You'd be like taking epic shit,
Batman
But not a legendary shit?
It's one of those things, right? I think Yahtzee said that the sign of a good evil villain is that you can't imagine them taking a shit. So, like, monsters... like Lovecraftian nightmares would be very scary, but when you get to a cultist, it's like, well, cultists are gonna take shits. They get diarrhea, they get run down or whatever. But if Alex Ross drew a cultist taking a shit, it would still be frightening and epic and very dangerous because that's just how he does everything.
All I can picture is the cultists would be using scented candles in like a row around them as they're taking the dump.
It would be a very thematic dump.
Somebody tweet to Alex Ross and have him draw this.
Don't. Please don't.
Hardleg Gaming officially wants cultists shitting with
this is Hardleg literature. We're about books, damn it. I'm fancier than that. I had to get away from it. I probably should have put this on the gaming channel. I'll probably do better. Anyway, overall spoiler-free thoughts. We'll go ahead and start with our newcomer, Mr. Bard Breaker. I just want to call you Dan.
You can call me whatever the hell you want, fuckface.
Okay. Well, Dan, what did you think of Kingdom Come?
It's a book. Go ahead,
Very
Brandon.
nice, yeah. You've always been kind of like, it's weird because you absorb a lot of media, but you're just kind of like, it existed, why you gotta rate everything?
Yeah, I'm like the kitchen sponge. I just kind of absorb everything out of the pans when you wash them. Although my fiance thinks you could just dump things in the dishwasher without rinsing them out first. So, sponges, but I don't know, it was decent.
It didn't change your life, but it wasn't an awful experience.
I didn't sit there and go, oh my god, I'm the villain this whole time? What deep powers within me? There should be things.
You didn't reevaluate how you think about superheroes in general?
No, because my favorite superheroes are the ones that don't have massive world-changing powers.
Exactly.
I like Batman and Green Arrow because they're just guys with gadgets.
What's cool is that, like, that's completely true of Green Arrow. Batman, for some reason, despite being a guy with a gadget, seems to have massive world-changing powers sometimes.
That's fair. That's true. In his little pockets, he pulls out kryptonite and it changes the course of a world-ending battle.
That's because Batman eats kryptonite and shits thunder, without any real reason.
But yeah, so your thing is just overall, like, a 5 out of 5, or like, I guess the, for you, I feel like the best thing would be thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, did it do what you wanted it to? Thumbs up. Was it bad? Thumbs down.
I give it more of a thumbs up than Empress Teresa.
That's not a high bar.
Yeah.
That's true. That's just,
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea behind the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. Is just like, I'm not gonna... Art is subjective. You can't rate it. But it either accomplished its goals, or it was boring, or it drove me away, or it was bad.
I was not bored with it, no. I don't know if I would give it a 5 out of 5, because I feel like that screams, perfection. Yeah. And I don't know if I would call it perfection, and it made me just think, like you said, reevaluate my existentialism.
Yeah.
But it's like,
but that's
it was good, it was solid,
Solid. Thumbs up.
Thumb up,
good.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go.
1.5 thumbs up.
You don't know. It's just thumbs up or thumbs down. That's the only things. It either was bad or it wasn't. Anyway, Brandon, what did you think? Spoiler-free thoughts.
This was not my first time reading this. A while back.
So you cheated then?
Yeah, a while back I asked you to borrow it, and I remembered a lot of it. But going back through it again, I had a bit different perspective.
Yeah, I will say it was much interesting because I had read this before as well. And coming back to it several years later, having read a lot more comic books and having looked at a lot more serious art or whatever, it was interesting to reevaluate this.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, my comic knowledge has definitely expanded since then because I
know who Deadman is now.
Yeah, as you said about Dan over here, I basically absorb media like nobody's business, but... this one, like reading a second time, some of the characters, the choices that they made on them kind of don't exactly jive as well, but also, the story does pop more. Yeah.
You enjoyed it more this time?
I enjoyed it more this time, and even though I knew some of the things that were going to happen, some of the other stuff, it had been long enough for me to forget some of it, so it definitely flowed.
And I believe you usually give things a rating on, like, 1 out of 10 or whatever, don't you?
Oh yeah, as of comic books, this is as like 4.5 to 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 out of 5.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say 4.5 out of 5 is like, whoa! I thought you liked this.
No, it's damn near a perfect book. Like there are certain things that like their interpretations of characters in it I didn't exactly enjoy, but. Other than, in the context of the story, fantastic. It was amazing.
I felt there were only, 4 characters that ever got any distinct development in there, though.
Wait, no.
Everything else was background characters.
There were certain characters, that's getting into spoilers.
Not necessarily, but go on.
In general, I will say that is one of the benefits of the comic book medium, as a whole, is, if you're doing a book, you can't have background people doing stuff because you have to describe everything that happens. You can have that in a visual medium, like a film, but because everything's moving on at 30 frames per second, you often miss stuff. But with a comic book, you can put any amount of detail in the background, and because you can read at your own pace, you have time to look at and find all the little details. That's kind of stuff like if you ever look at Watchmen or some of Alan Moore's stuff, he'll do things like put specific candy bar wrappers on the floor in the background to help with the world building and stuff.
That reminds me, not a spoiler part of it, but there's a splash page in there that I literally stopped for a good 10 minutes to just be like, and this is happening in the background, and this is happening.
I really like the scenes that take place in the restaurant, because you can see all the little like
the crazy
merch,
crap on the wall.
Yeah, all the different
kitsch,
crap on the wall.
All the kitsch. Mm-hmm. It was just really fun. That's a really good thing about, like, especially Alex Ross. He does pour so much into his stuff, even when it's like small cuts to faces.
It's also hard for me to accurately like give opinions on things, because like I was telling Joe before we started, this is really like the first graphic novel I've actually sat down to read cover to cover, other than the first like 2 Walking Dead compendiums.
Really?
Which I read, because I love the show, and my former roommate gave me one of those, and then I bought the other one. Oh, okay. So I've read the 2 Walking Dead compendiums out of 4, and those are the only graphic novels I've read other than this one.
But yeah, that's pretty nice. We will get into that when we start discussing it, because we do have patron questions, and someone asked, like, how would you rate this as someone who doesn't really know a lot about DC or comics or hasn't been into there? I guess you've already a little bit sort of said, like, you still enjoyed it even though you didn't get all the little background characters, all the nods. This is full of a lot of, like, continuity as far as, like, you know, they have this splash page of, like, 100 characters, and a lot of these are either recognizable characters or they're, like, future versions of them that you look at and be like, oh, is that the Flash's great-granddaughter? Holy shit.
That's the cool thing. Like, at the back of the book, there's literally a compendium of just, like, so, these big splash pages, there's this character, this character, this character.
See, I don't get that through the Kindle.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the Kindle version of book 4, because I bought it as 4 separate volumes instead of one collected thing. That was all Kindle had. And they put a couple of pages out of order towards the end of book 4, and it confused me slightly. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. They've scanned these in the wrong order. That makes more sense now.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
Yeah, but I think that was... So overall, I think you'd say you'd like it. You give it like a 7 out of 10 or a 4.5 out of 10.
I actually give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was damn near perfect. And I, like, again, the only thing that's keeping it from perfection is its interpretation of a certain character in there. And other than that, it's just, like, so... It's beautiful, and the story is interesting and has some stuff in there that's just really compelling to me.
Yeah. I feel like this is a book that does kind of try to do everything. I've talked before about my scale. I still haven't made a video about like how I judge things, but basically I think art has 4 different things it can try to achieve, and I rate it on how good it tries to do one of these things. And I think the one that this tries to do the most is be sort of like a timeless piece of art. Mm-hmm. This is something that, like, you know, 100 years from now, even if you don't exactly know who these characters are, simply because of the way it's depicted and the way the story is told from an outsider perspective, and because the themes are just this very broad sense of, like, what do people in power do? What are their responsibilities? I feel like this is something that will last the test of time. Unfortunately, that means it kind of fails at some of those other things, as far as, like, making a really heartfelt connection that, like, makes you feel something. The art kind of has this statuesque feel to it, and because of that, it looks very pretty, but it's also hard to, like, feel the emotions on the people's faces a lot of times. It's hard to get super invested, especially because as your narrator is literally, like, detached from everything. Like, he's just kind of floating around in a void. You know, the action is kind of cool in this because it has these huge splash pages, but it's not like a manga or whatever where you're like, oh, getting into the fights. Look, they're jumping around. Mm-hmm. Because all you get a lot of times is like
chaos.
One big fight with like everyone doing stuff. And there's a lot of detail, but you don't get a sense for like every punch being thrown. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like they are fighting, and also, it's epic.
Also, yeah, because it's very epic, you don't get very personal like ideas of things.
I really do like it for that, because of the 4 things that art can do, very few aim for that these days. Like, there are very few people, like, composing symphonies, or if there are, I don't know about them. It's a lot of people just sort of, like, trying to make movies that appeal to the heart, right?
Oh, you don't know about Justin Bieber's symphony?
I was just going to say, Neil Sears-Sierra might want to have a word with you.
But yeah, whether it's music or movies or television, it seems like a lot of people are trying to, like, appeal to the action sentiments, appeal to your emotions, or try to do something, like, experimental or something at the most. And so it's really interesting to do something that is this sort of detached, statuesque thing. Especially because it surprisingly holds up after 20 years.
It's the same thing you're talking about with art and how everything is the same reason, like, I'm going to get a little bit of a diatribe here, but the same reason why, like, anime itself right now is becoming more and more and more like sex and moe type crap, because that's the stuff that sells, and you're not getting a lot of stuff that's timeless. You're getting a bunch of stuff that's like bubblegum popcorn crap.
Yeah.
It's just gonna pop up and
you're not getting like Akira where people are like drawing frame by frame and adding so much detail. You're getting like, I was hit by a bus and now I'm a slime in a world of sexy dragon maids. What will I do, mother?
And not to promote too much on this, but yeah, that's why there's a certain anime out there called Ranking of Kings that has an art style that doesn't lend itself to any of that moe crap, and the story itself is epic, and I'm hooked on it for the same reason that I'm hooked in with Kingdom Come. Yeah. This is very, like,
I'm glad you brought it back. I was going to be like, no advertising anime here, Brandon. This is a literature channel.
Yeah.
Advertise the manga.
It doesn't exactly hit the same thing, but it does have this very, like...
It goes for that vibe.
It goes for, like, a timeless kind of... It looks kind of like Ghibli.
Yeah.
So
and everything goes in cycles. Like, the 4 types of art... none of them, in my opinion, is any better or worse. They're just sort of like, they each serve different functions, and at different times, different ones will be more popular, and they kind of rise and fall.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so overall, though, I'd say if you like that kind of stuff, if you're looking for something that has that timeless quality, definitely check this out. Or if you like superhero comics in general, it's pretty interesting, and it's pretty short. You can finish in, like, this took me, like, an hour, 2 hours, and I was, like, going very slowly through each panel to look for details. I believe Dan just sort of finished it in my living room 20 minutes before we started.
I literally read 25% of it in your living room before we recorded this.
Like, it's taken me a couple days, but that's also because, like, I'm just spending so much time, like, looking at
the first time I read it, I kind of scanned through it, and this time I really, like, let me look at every composition and every panel and see if I can find stuff in the background.
Also, another term for this to be recommended for is if you wanted a small love letter to DC Comics and, like,
how it used to be,
definitely Kingdom Come. Yeah,
but we'll get to that in the spoiler-filled talk, which we should go ahead and get into. And as I said before, if you haven't read the book, we're not going to hold your hand. You just got to tough it out. Maybe go read it real quick. Again, you can find this probably online. I mean, I'm not advocating piracy, but you're an adult. You can make your own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to try to pirate stuff or download the Kindle how much did this cost you, Dan?
It was like, I think $8 for the whole set. So
that's
like,
not that bad. Yeah,
that's not too bad.
Something like that, $8 or $10, which is like, whatever. If that's what it costs me to get through the door to Joe's channel, I will spend $8.
Yeah. By the way, Bardbreaker does have their own YouTube channel. Nice little Pokemon challenges. If you like that and you've liked the sound of his voice so far, maybe go check that out. Just type in Bardbreaker into YouTube.
Or if Joe doesn't remember, a link in the doobly-doo.
Yeah, there may be one, if I feel like it.
You never do.
Depends how good you are.
Well, alright then. I'm not wearing anything under the jacket, so...
So yes, with this one, as I hinted earlier, we had some patron-requested stuff. I will mention real quick that this show and all my channels are funded by the Patreon. If you join for $1, you can get on my Discord, where we have a specific board set up for Legs Talk About Books. You can find out what book we're reading in advance, read it yourself, and then perhaps offer some questions and such. And Frankly asks, how penetratable do you find this story? Dan, stop laughing. Obviously, everyone knows Superman and Batman, but does the inclusion of lesser-known characters like Spectre, Deadman, and the various future heroes make it too difficult for new readers? Like, as our only new reader...
How difficult do all these side characters... I don't think it makes it very difficult. It did take me a bit to kind of figure out who the fuck we were, like, narrating with, like, and what their role was in all of this, because it's like, oh, so it's just a random dead guy. It's like, we're going on a tour like it's fucking Ebenezer Scrooge in Christmas Carol. Like, that was
the Spectre did it all in one night.
Because I didn't quite pick up that it was Spectre really until we were here. And we were talking about it before Brandon showed up.
Yeah, because I guess they call him a Spectre. I'm not sure if they ever say he's the Spectre.
Yeah, and maybe I just glossed over his name tag or something. Yeah. But Yeah, it was. So that was kind of jarring because I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy supposed to be?" Like,
but you still understood everything.
But
that
I
was
understood.
Going on.
Yeah, I understood everything. Like, it's not hard to get past it because then eventually you kind of settle in and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's like fucking Ebenezer Scrooge or there's a magic ghost taking this dead guy or this old guy on a trip through like a moral lesson."
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, I could get behind that. And then, like I said earlier, the all the random background characters, most of them aren't doing anything. It's like, you got Superman, you got Wonder Woman, you got Batman, you got Lex Luthor in like 4 panels, and then that's about it. And then Shazam.
Shazam, you kind of have to know, because one thing I didn't know going into this, but now that Shazam has a movie, people might... So, when he calls down his power, he yells Shazam, and the lightning bolt comes down and strikes him. And one of the ways he can attack people is by yelling Shazam and then ducking out of the way so that the lightning bolt hits other stuff in front of him. I haven't seen the movie, have you?
I've seen the movie. It was.
Does he do that in the movie?
No, he doesn't. Okay. But he does it in the Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe video game, which he's my favorite character to play. Not because I give 2 shits about Shazam, but because he has a beautiful range, just like throwing lightning bolts of Zeus attack. And you can just stand on the other side of the stage. But he has that grapple where he grapples someone and he goes, Shazam! And he calls down the Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
He actually does that in the Justice League Unlimited show. When he actually does fight Superman, he holds him on his chest and just keeps saying it. But to answer your question on that, I felt like, and I know I'm not exactly a new reader on this stuff.
Yeah, you're a big comic book guy. You probably know more stuff than I do.
And he's just a big guy in general, folks.
Wow. Okay, I thought that they were very esoteric with it, enough that you could actually just easily insert yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing, the first time I read this, I didn't know who Deadman was, but you don't really have to understand him. You just, like, you see the skull guy and he's talking about being dead or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is some kind of afterlife superhero or whatever. No big deal.
How could you not know who Boston Rand is? He was a great gymnast.
I do like, I think that there is a moment in the first one that kind of works as just sort of like fan service. And I wasn't sure how well that worked for you, where they talk about all the heroes and what they've been up to. Where they're like, Green Lantern has retreated to the skies. And he's got like the whole thing. My favorite one is the one with the Flash, where they're like, in Keystone City, no crime has ever happened in 30 years. Not a piece of garbage has hit the floor. No one knows where the Flash went, but every once in a while they think they see a red blur, where it's like, for the last 50 years, he's just been running around at light speed, like, stopping, like, people fall off their roof, and he, like, carefully sets them down in a way that makes it feel like they just fell that way.
My favorite...
like, picking up all the garbage and everything is like, I love that idea of the Flash. It's just like, I'm done with humanity. I just run from now on.
I do like the fact that because he's that OP, that he's literally like, the Spectre, this otherworldly being, literally an angel of God, and he's just like, I see you there. Rips.
Yeah, at one point the Flash just pulls them out of, like, the dead zone or whatever, the interdimensional astral plane.
Mm-hmm. And he's just like, because I could vibrate at all places.
Because Flash can go through the dimensional plane.
That is really nice that, like, basically because of the Speed Force, they don't, like, say this out loud. I think they might have written it at the end when they show him, but, like, every frame you see of him, even when he's supposed to be standing still, he's, like, vibrating.
Yeah.
You never get a clear picture at him because it's implied that he's always moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nice. I always like that kind of depiction.
He doesn't have much to do in there, but he is in there and he's always moving.
Yeah.
He's not a central player to the show.
No, he doesn't say a single word. Same thing with Green Lantern. Like, he's cool. It's nice to see him in this emerald throne with a huge sword, but he didn't say anything.
Oddly enough, he doesn't say anything, but he actually does say like a couple lines. He has more of an impact. Well, he has about the same amount of impact as the Flash because he's literally the base of operations for Superman.
Yeah, he's just the new satellite.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just kind of there.
Emerald City, you know.
He does some cool... They visit Aquaman and they're like, hey, can we put our criminals in the ocean? And they're like, fuck off! You guys always want to throw your garbage in the ocean.
I did like that. I did like that one.
He's like, you have 5,000 superheroes to patrol the Earth. The ocean is like 3/4 of the Earth, and I'm the only fucker down here, and you want to put a bunch of villains down? Like, he doesn't say it that mean, but I can just see him, like, seething through the page. Like, you want what? No. Get away.
I do like the Dark Side's, like, the reveal of Orion being the successor for Darkseid is very cool, because they're just like, oh, he's going to Apocalypse? Why to Darkseid? And then like, does Darkseid have facial hair? Oh shit, it's Orion.
Yeah, that is the one thing I will say where, like, they included that scene, and apparently that was only in the special edition. The original version, they omitted that. But he really wanted to draw it, and he did make it, and they cut it originally. But it's in here.
Yeah, it was in mine.
Yeah. So they added it in later editions, and I don't know anything about Darkseid and Orion and any of that. So, like, the whole, like, reveal, because they, like, dramatically have him standing there, and it's like, I think this is, like, Darkseid's brother or
it's
son?
His son. The vague understanding I get comes from the DCAU, the Animated Justice League, and Superman and Batman shows that were on the WB and were fantastic. Go buy the Blu-rays. I just got the Superman animated series for Christmas. The basic understanding I get is, like, Darkseid is the ruler of Apocalypse. His son Orion was, like, traded to the people below on, like, the planet, and Darkseid has somebody else up there that was, like, not his son that they traded from the planet or something, and Orion is raised as not his son, but he is Darkseid's son. And then you get this graphic novel where now he's, like, evil again, and he's Darkseid now.
Well, they mentioned that, like, he rules Apocalypse, and they make a mention where he's like, I thought you'd do better than your father. He's like, I tried to give them democracy, but they've lived under a dictator so long that the choice paralyzes them. They just want someone strong to lead them. So there's this idea of, like, you know, he doesn't want to be a ruler, but without it, someone else worse will take his place.
I think we're about to kill Brandon. He's about to explode.
I have to translate for Dan. This is not something that is negotiable. So, there are 2 planets. There is New Genesis.
Yes, New Genesis. That's the name of the planet. Thank you.
New Genesis and Apocalypse. They are literally good and bad planets.
Right.
They have been warring since the beginning of time.
Right.
And to make a peace, or a pact of peace, they the 2 leaders, Highfather for New Genesis and Apocalypse had Darkseid,
right,
transferred. They switched sons as a token of peace. Orion is raised by a Highfather and is actually Darkseid's son.
But is good because nurture over nature.
Nurture over nature, yeah. And that's why he decided to tried to become a better ruler. Sorry.
It didn't work very well.
I explained that in exactly as
the
clear
same terms.
Okay.
Who explained it better? Comment below.
Okay.
You think I'm including all this?
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with anything.
But no, yeah, that scene was really cool. I liked it just because, like, as a fan, that made, as you can tell.
Yeah, you liked it. I didn't really get it, but I kind of got the basic themes of it and everything, what they're kind of going for. But I feel like if I had known more about it, that scene in particular would have helped out. But that's, like, the only one.
And it didn't play into anything, though. Like,
no.
I can see why they cut it. Orion literally does nothing in the book. It's just a scene.
It's a very, very deletable scene.
Yeah. It's like if they put the code of the Abel's tax law in there. It wouldn't have mattered in the grand scheme of the story. They would have cut it.
Mm-hmm. But
don't agree with him. You don't know what we're talking about because you don't watch the show when you're not in it, or even when you're in it, for that matter. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm gonna let this die down for a few seconds. I would like to describe at this point the why I took, like, 5% off.
Yeah.
Like, the character of Spectre in this book dances around the idea, but also doesn't acknowledge it fully at points, that he is literally an angel of the god of the universe on that one.
Yeah.
And they just treat him like he's a guy, which kind of, I don't know, it's very, like, to
be fair, I think that's, like, in the 90s, they weren't quite sure what to do with Spectre, because it's like, his presence there kind of confirms, like, the Abrahamic god in that world. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, well, what does Thor and, like, Hercules have to say about that? Because those are real people in that universe, too.
There's actually a whole big thing on that, and that was actually something that Jack Kirby did. That's just...
Yeah, just a big battle of the god stuff.
But
although, what's interesting about it is, like, you know, while they may have removed it a little bit from the Spectre, they definitely kept a character who, like, is very specifically a Christian and quotes from the Bible and stuff into there.
Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that the Spectre isn't a guy who fucks around is the best part, because, like, the Spectre is literally a guy, his character isn't that he is the angel of justice, he is the angel of vengeance. Like, literally he just is around to screw over people that did wrong.
He turned a dude into a candle once and then burned him.
He turned a dude into cheese and then made rats eat him once.
Where was that in Ratatouille?
That was in a kid's show.
He's like early Yu-Gi-Oh! If you've ever seen Season 0, where he was just like, time for a punishment game. Like, that's the Spectre.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to take your eyes and you can only see in pixels now. Like, why? He didn't do anything too terrible.
I think he set someone on fire, too. Maybe.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He caused the guy to... Yeah, that's but it's Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh's crazy balls.
But, yeah. That was your only thing you wanted to get out?
Yeah, that's the... I wanted to explain why I didn't exactly like everything about it. But yeah, the book itself is so fun.
We've come a long way from Frankie's first question there.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, but that's fine. We'll ramble around a little bit. We have fun. And I've got more questions up here. They're good. There's 2 major themes to this story.
Oh, Lord.
And I would like to discuss both. I know you don't like themes that much. If you want to take a bathroom break, Dan, you certainly can. Not here in the room. Go out to the bathroom. But yeah, first is, of course, the eternal superhero question. Like, do super-powered people have too much power? Like, I feel like that's something that pretty much every superhero story, once it starts to be a little mature, starts to deal with this idea of, like, should we really let just Superman basically make up the laws? Like, he decides who's right and wrong? Like, it's funny because those are often framed as, like, the villains, the people who question the superheroes, because we know, as the readers, that they have good intentions. But it's hard to divorce yourself and kind of, like, take an outside perspective. If someone was just flying around, picking people up and being like, this guy committed a crime, put him in jail, and the police were like, sure thing, whatever you say, like, there's a lot of people who would be very paranoid and very worried and very mistrustful about that kind of character. And especially recently, we've been seeing a lot more made into film, stuff like The Boys. Invincible deals a little bit with that, kind of. Not really.
It's very much dealing with the idea of this, not just like any superhero, the Superman allegory of these stories that is the pinnacle of superhero perfection. Should we really trust somebody with that much strength outright?
And of course, that kind of bleeds over to this sort of like strong man of history or great man of history in general, where it's like, you know, if there's someone who seems to have a lot of power and charisma, should we just let them do what they want and hope they have the right intentions? Or should we purposely like stand in the way and make a democratic system and force them to be equal with everyone else so that we can discuss it as a group? And it's very, very heavy, very weighty questions. Lots of stuff that you can discuss. I'm not sure if we necessarily want to get into the philosophy of it now, especially because one of the things that almost doesn't age very well about Kingdom Come is how it handles that. Because it kind of like glosses over it.
Yeah.
Like it kind of imply at the end that things are going to be a little bit more democratic. But it kind of like, yeah, Superman who leads by example and Batman who leads by fear are essentially the same thing. And I'm like, not really. Batman's kind of a lot more dictatory than Superman is.
Yeah, they just kind of get to the end and they're just like, oh, it'll be different this time.
Yeah.
But they don't like give any like examples of why or how. They're just like, things happened. The exact same situation that happened before that caused all the drama has happened again, and now it's going to be different this time.
Well, this time a bunch of innocents didn't get killed. This time it was only superheroes.
This also does, the allegory does kind of fall flat in a little bit of things, because Superman is this entity that you physically can't get rid of.
Yeah.
Whereas a dictator of sorts, a strong, just a well-placed bullet in the skull, you're good.
Yeah, that's why that allegory never, that's the thing, is that's the most serious thing that superheroes can do, is bring up this idea of, fascism, but it never quite works for them, because they are literally, gods. They do have godlike power. It's not like, when Fearless Leader comes up and says, I am a god who will lead you into the new thing, you shouldn't believe him because he's not. But Superman kinda is, and he kind of might. But
it also does deal with the idea in there of, what superheroes ought to be, as you say, it should look at fascism, which is a good idea, but it also gets back to what superheroes should be, which is the inspiration.
Yeah, they do cover that briefly, where Superman's like, I'm not here to solve your problems. I'm here to show you that there is good in the world, so that when you make your own decisions, hopefully you do good things, and not just be like, the world is shit.
Yeah, and then not just like that good is in the world, that good can and will survive if I survive. This idea,
if other people survive too. Yeah, because it's about, like, I may not be here, but good can still be here without me.
For me, it was always this idea. For me, it's this idea that, like, he represents good, and that good isn't some waning thing. That it is
powerful.
It is powerful, and he
big and strong and fly really fast and everything,
and just like something that will not be snuffed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's a fertile ground to discuss a lot of things, but the problem with this book is that it came out in 1996. And at the time, even mentioning that at all, like kind of comparing superheroes to being like, they're a little extrajudicial, they're a little dictatory in some ways, like, that was like, it blew people's minds. Mm-hmm. And so much has been influenced by this. Like, you look at a lot of modern stories, and that's just kind of taken for granted. There's like, even the Justice League cartoon show had a little bit of that with Batman. Yeah. There was an episode or two where they're like, Batman, you seem to control a lot of people and don't really ask for permission a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and they did that too, where they were like, "You have a massive space laser looking down on us. Like, how are we supposed to take that?" Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even Marvel's like taking that same road with like the, I don't know which came out first, Kingdom Come or the Civil War comic series.
Kingdom Come.
Yeah, Civil War was like 2003 or 4, I believe, when the comics hit it. Mm-hmm. So that was like a full 10 years after this.
Okay, so then they just took that same idea, because there's the whole thing of the Sokovia Accords, like, should superheroes be regulated? They're all American, because, America! But it's like, are these American-based, metahumans just doing whatever they want? Like, is that good? Like, what does the rest of the world think about just, like, Captain America dropping down with his superpowers and, doing what he wants in their sovereign nation?
Yeah, it's
like, yeah, we know Captain America's a good guy. Like,
but if he shows up in, like, Afghanistan, I can understand why they would be rightfully afraid of him.
Exactly.
And, yeah, so it's a good example of, like, this is Baby's first superhero allegory, if you want to read it, and that's because it was pioneering in its way. So it still holds up, but it also, like, doesn't explore it as in-depth. Because, like you said, the ending kind of leaves it so ambiguous that you're not really sure exactly what it was trying to say, or if it was trying to say anything.
They're literally just like, it happened before, but we're not going to let it happen this time. It's going to be different because...
Let's do it better this time, which Wheel of Time said a lot better.
It feels like the end of this story is the last gasp of kindness that DC had for a while.
A little bit.
Because, like, every book from that point on is very, very, like, yes, everything's bleak, and everybody should see it that way. And now it's just very, like, everything is kind of... There hasn't been a lot of hopeful bursts of light.
And that's what I was going to say. The other major theme in this is actually like a meta-commentary on DC Comics as a whole. Like, in many ways, this story tries to be a condemnation of the dark, gritty storytelling that was threatening to overtake comics in 1996.
And has now successfully.
There's literally, like, the plot line, right, where, like, Joker kills Lois Lane, and Superman wants to take him to jail. He's taking him to jail. And then Magog, this new, tough, gritty superhero, comes up and just stabs Joker in the chest and is like, "You're welcome! Why haven't you done this years ago?" And then Superman's like, "You just killed an unarmed, like, man in handcuffs. You've got to be on trial." And the trial is like, yeah, let Magog go. He killed the fucking Joker.
Yeah, it's like, he was right. Like, why didn't we just do that?
And it's super funny that they talk about it like that, and they're like, oh, you should be warned about this and all this stuff. And then they fucking 10 years later made a comic where Superman does that exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they made the Injustice, didn't they?
The video game, then they made the comic based off of it. But either way...
that's an Elseworlds thing.
It's the same, but people compare it the same
way. But yeah, it is the same, except for, like, Superman just fucking kills the Joker himself instead of waiting for someone else.
And he goes full fascist. He goes full 100% fascist.
It is, I mean, to be fair, it is presented as the bad guy or whatever. And again, it kind of undercuts what they're trying to say. Like, I get the idea, like, everyone deserves due process. In real life, yes. The Joker does not fucking deserve due process. He is a blight upon humanity. He has never been reformed. He always escapes. If anyone deserves the death penalty, it is the Joker.
Though I do like that they're like the Magog representing this like new this new generation of just very gritty, like, oh, we have to kill them. And then he fucks up in a royal way and destroys literally all of Kansas. And you're like, half the book you're spending this time, they're like, where's Magog? Where's Magog? Why can't he go find... And they get to Magog, and he's literally just trying to build a barn.
In Kansas.
He's trying to rebuild and just fix Kansas. And they get to him, and he's like, has this one outburst of anger, and then the rest of it's just him being like, just kill me.
Yeah.
Make the millions of ghosts in my head go away. That scene I remember from both the first reading to the second reading, because that is just some...
It's very moving. It's also worth noting the parallel of, like, when you first see Superman, he's farming in space, showing that, like, he's not just a destroyer. He can create stuff. He can build stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when you find Magog, he's literally trying to build something and failing at it because all he can do is destroy and kill.
Mm-hmm.
And he's realized that has made him kind of useless in this post-Kansas world. Also, I didn't think about it till now. Were Ma and Pa Kent killed by the nuclear explosion that wiped out Kansas? They were in Kansas,
I guess
right?
It's implied.
Yeah.
Like, they don't explicitly state it.
I think that with the times that it is, I feel like...
they probably died of old age already.
Pa Kent dies canonically, like, earlier on in Clark's career, and it's a really good...
By a tornado.
No. Fucking no.
I like that scene.
I don't give two shits if you like it.
That was a good scene.
That upsets me because it is not a good representation of the good part of the struggle that Clark deals with, because Jonathan Kent dies...
That's Man of Steel with different things.
Jonathan Kent dies of a fucking heart attack because Clark can't stop that. He can stop a tornado. Okay, but no, like, it feels like the story... like, Ma and Pa Kent are probably long dead by... Not obviously in this story, but, like, before that happens.
Yeah. But it's weird that, like, I never realized, like, they blow up Kansas and never mention, like, oh yeah, Smallville is, like, fucking a nuclear, like, obliterated piece of dust.
They actually do talk about that. They talk about, like, the irradiated soil and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
nothing
but they never
grows.
mention that, like, Superman's home basically got blown up by this.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas literally became dust in the wind.
Moving
All
on.
we want is dust in the wind.
They had to sit through my diatribes. I have to sit through this.
But yeah, my point is, this comic was clearly trying to say, like, the dark and gritty storytelling, this lack of focus on, like, life as being precious, as heroes, like, saving life, is a bad trend, and they should reverse it. Which is kind of outdated and almost funny because, you know, the DC is really dark and gritty now, and, like, the new Superman movies don't really talk about sanctity of life at all. Neither does Batman, really, the first Batman Begin movies, he's like, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you either. I'm like, that's killing someone. The real Batman wouldn't do that. I mean, even the Batman and Suicide Squad went after Harley Quinn in the water. Mm-hmm. He didn't be like, I don't have to save you.
Also, another little thing about the light there, like, I didn't realize this the first time I read it, but at the end of the story, Batman stops being Batman. He becomes basically the Red Cross.
I say he becomes Nurse Man.
Yeah, he literally, like, he's...
Bat Nurse.
He's...
20 cc's of justice. Stat.
God, that's bad. But yeah, I really like that, and that shows that even, like, the poster boy for this dark and gritty BS that everybody's, like, into, he can even change into a hopeful figure.
Well, that's the weird thing, is that, like, even as dark and gritty as Batman is, they make a point of being like, you know, Superman, you and me may not agree on the tactics, but we both agree not to kill. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because, like, that never came up in, like, any of the modern incarnations of Superman or Batman. In fact, I remember seeing, like, a compilation of Batman in, like, the Justice League movie, where he's just, like, hitting cars with rockets or, like, throwing people into the highway. Like, that man is dead. That man is absolutely dead. Like, here's his kill count from that movie.
16? 7. Actually, when we saw it in theaters, me and one of my best friends were sitting there, we literally counted how many people were dead at the end of the Batman-Superman movie, and we had to be fudging it a little bit because there were cars, and we don't know who's in it.
You don't know how many. You gotta assume there's at least one.
Maybe
a family of 4 with their dog, too. You don't know.
That's 3 more people smuggled in the trunk.
That's a 4-door car, so that's obviously got at least 4 people in it. They're all dead. That's exploded.
Yeah.
It's just like...
It's just so weird how, like... Yeah, like you said, it's... In this one, Magog comes and kills the Joker, and then years later or whatever, they're just going to be like, what if we did that, but Superman actually did it, and we have to question whether or not that was right?
Like,
no. I
don't know. Like, admittedly, you're saying, like, yeah, Joker deserves to die. And I don't 100% agree with it, not because of, like, because once you step over that line, it's still not easy to go back.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think that Superman should kill the Joker, but I think a jury should have been like, I don't care how good the laws are in Gotham. Mm-hmm. They should have been like, okay, we don't have the death penalty, but that fucker's gonna die.
Like, I would bring back the guillotine for you, just to be like, you are to be executed, that is it, that is done, we're done.
It's like the whole point, at least to me, of not having, like, the death penalty is like, what if you're wrong? Like, what if you've made, even the most open and closed cases can possibly see, but when someone's been a mass murderer, like, several times now at this point.
The man literally broadcasts himself killing people on several occasions.
Oh dear, that's not a lot of time, is it?
Yeah, like...
But he doesn't mess with the IRS.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, we got a little off topic. I did have a couple more talking points. One was another one from Frankly. He
must be donating a lot to get multiple questions.
He was just the only one who read it, I think.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Frank.
That's why I always try to get more people into the Patreon, because, like, at any given month, we have maybe 2 questions.
Also, thank you, Frankly.
Thank you, Frankly.
Thank you, Frankly, for your generous donations. We love you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love you, but you're good for a pay. Anyway. There was a time when DC embraced this story as the de facto future. Several modern stories are told that linked back to this continuity. At this point, though, do you think it's worth pursuing? Because it feels like a pretty bad future, all things said.
I mean, most of the futures that any comic book series is going towards these days doesn't exactly seem like a bright and shining future. This one at least has a hopeful ending.
Yeah, it's always... Comics are usually reflections of the times, and I don't think anything in the last 50 years has really had a very hopeful future.
Yeah,
you gotta go back to, like, the 1940s for that.
This one at least ends on a hopeful note. I'd prefer this to any other bleak-ass future.
Even if it's kind of bleak, I like the idea that, like, basically, instead of retconning everything or having another fucking reboot because they always have them, I like the idea that they're just like, yeah, there's too many heroes. Why not just kill a bunch of them off? Like, have a big event where all the heroes are fighting in one thing and a bomb goes off and, like, 90% of the hero population dies out and the new people get to rise in, and instead of getting, like, Flash 8 or the 15th Green Lantern, we could get an actual new original character who's not based on anything.
And the Green Outlet!
I specifically like the fact that the, like, superhero population had reached, like, a singularity where it was like,
there's more heroes than non-heroes, and the heroes are fighting themselves. I do really love that scene where they're like at Ellis Island, and a bunch of right-wing heroes are like, you immigrants are coming to our nation, and we need to stop you. And then a bunch of left-wing heroes are like, immigrants are the lifeblood of this country. And then they start fighting each other, and a bunch of immigrants get killed with the crossfire. It's like, neither of you are helping anything.
I just also love, like, the idea of just, like, they get stupid bored, and they're just like, let's fight, and like this.
Basically, they have gangs of heroes running the streets.
I always pictured it whenever I thought about that part of the story. I always pictured it as being just a bunch of like 15-year-olds or like kids who have infinite power and ability, and they just like get bored. So they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna start a fight with this guy," and then they just do it. And random schmucks on the street are just getting splattered.
You know, that brings up a very interesting idea that I'm not sure if any superhero story has covered. What about the idea of, like, you know, superheroes, you're good to run free or whatever, you've got very little oversight, but one of those oversights is you are not allowed to breed. You are not allowed to have children because children with superpowers are extremely dangerous. So there's like this give and take, right? Where it's like, yeah, you're free to do whatever, just don't pop out 900 super-powered kids, because we don't need a bunch of, like, fucking horny teenagers with super speed running around doing God knows what to the city.
Hell, this book ends with Superman and Wonder Woman, the two, like, pinnacles of their gender in that series, in that world, and just being like, yeah, we're having a kid. I'd be like, oh, Mother of God. Yeah. No.
I always thought Wonder Woman was, like, made out of clay and, like, didn't have internal organs. Like, if you stabbed her, there was just, like, clay inside of there.
She's mythically made out of clay, so it's basically, like, magic ovaries.
Oh, I always imagined her, like, being, like, Clayface, but she just chose to be a pretty lady.
No.
Clay lady?
No.
I don't know a lot about the lore of Wonder Woman, to be fair.
It's very Greek, so it's very much like the statue that I believe Aphrodite made.
I mean, he's got a point, though. Like, was it either in Wonder Woman or was it in the SNL bit where she makes out with Kate McKinnon, where it's just like, my mother sculpted me from clay when I was younger, and that was how I was created. So, like, there is that theory of just like, yeah.
But also, magic don't make no damn sense.
It might not be anatomically correct. Wonder Woman canonically has no butthole. Every time she eats, she has to barf it up later.
She doesn't actually have to eat because she has no butthole, so she's just self-sustaining on energy.
Yeah, she doesn't have to eat, but that food has to go somewhere, and she don't have no butthole, so it comes out her ears. What can we say?
Welcome
Joe,
to Hardleg Literature.
Make sure you
everybody.
include this segment, but not any of the other segments where we talked about serious stuff.
Welcome to Hardleg Literature, where weird conversations.
Yeah. Hardleg Literature, today we're doing Kingdom Come. So what if Wonder Woman shit out her ears? She ain't got no butthole because she's made of clay.
Speaking of weird tangents, there is one last thing that I really wanted to go on a tangent about, which the first time reading didn't really see it through, but in light of like everything that's been going on the last couple of years, everything I've learned about like police reform, I find like strangely dark, and that is basically Batman's story entirety. Because they mention that every other hero has given up, right? Except for Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is still fighting his never-ending vigil against injustice in Gotham City.
And now he has the Iron Legion helping him.
Yeah, he basically has a whole army of robots that are patrolling the city non-stop, always observing you and looking for crime. Like, he's basically Bat Big Brother, right? And it's like, they specifically mention he rules by fear. He's always done that, but usually it's the criminals fear the Batman. Now it's like everyone fears the Bat Sentinels that are always watching from the skyscrapers. It's like, I just can't imagine this, like, old man Bruce Wayne, after 40 years of patrolling Gotham, is like, I don't get it. I keep punching the criminals, and people keep stealing bread. Haven't they learned yet that they're going to get punched? It's like, what about the underlying inequality that makes Gotham have so many poor people who turn to crime? Have you thought about...
Mr. Billionaire Man.
Mr. Billionaire Man. You have the resources to build an army, but you don't have the resources to bring jobs to Gotham. Like, come on, buddy. There's gotta be like, the fact that he's doing it so long, and it's still, like, every night with this shit. I punch, and they keep having more crime. It's like, maybe there's a solution that doesn't involve punching.
You can't punch out a boulder, Tristan.
Yeah.
I can try.
My voice gives me super strength. So it's just like, you know, and what's funny is they kind of hint at that at the end. They're like, what if he turned the Bruce Wayne Manor into a hospital and, like, helped people who were sick and got them back on their feet and, like, reformed Lex Luthor and stuff? And it's like, yeah, I wonder if, like, instead of focusing on punching the Joker and then putting him into Arkham and being like, okay, Arkham, now it's your problem. What if Batman sat down with Joker in the Batcave and, like, tried to convert him or tried to, like, fix him mentally?
Admittedly, you're going for like the very psychological, like, I sit down and sit with you type thing. They're using bullshit sci-fi collars that make them comply in this, which is equally like Wheel of Time, very murky and very no. But yeah. I do like the idea, again, I really like that scene at the end of Bruce just being like, and he turned all of his Sentinels into just like big O Baymaxes.
Yeah, just big ol' helping people. And yeah, it does bring this idea of like, again, what if Batman was like, I'm going to study psychology and put all the effort I used to do with fighting into like learning to be a psychologist? Because imagine bat psychologists like psychoanalyzing like villains and trying to reform them and be like, I'm gonna help you get a job so you can get back on your feet and provide for your family in a way that isn't detrimental to society.
He would have a field day with, like, the Riddler. So you have this compulsion to put riddles in everything.
Have you considered about...
German?
I didn't say that. You have this compulsion. This would be German.
You don't understand. As soon as you study psychology, you become Freud. That is just...
So you want to fuck your mother. This is a thing.
Bruce obviously didn't. He doesn't have a mother.
Not anymore. I mean, he had one. but then, like, the Joker killed Murray on TV, and then all the other clowns were, like, copied him and killed Bruce Wayne's parents for no reason.
I hated that movie. It was terrible. I hated that scene. Well, I hated that Joker movie.
You get what you deserved, then.
Yeah, oh.
Anyway, that was my final rant. I'm not sure if you had anything to add, any other side tangents you wanted to say.
So about Oliver Queen's daughter with the...
She showed up one point. You had a tangent about it that got removed. But I'll put this one in so they can know that you were really impressed that Oliver Queen's daughter made like a little cameo appearance.
I really liked it.
I liked that.
Yeah, it was a nice little scene. Other than like the Spectre and feeling like he was, I don't know, they just made him a man as opposed to an actual angel of God type thing. Though the story had it was a lot of fun, and then it ends with the most terrifying prospect of Clark and Diana's child running amok upon the world, even being trained by Batman. It's like
the super wonder bat baby,
where you're just like, well, we're all going to die.
Yeah. The power of Superman and Wonder Woman, and it learns to rule by fear. Mother of God, help us.
And it's as indomitable as Superman and Batman combined. You're just like, I don't want to live on Earth anymore.
It's gonna be just send that out to space.
I want to go for a Zeta tube.
Just send that to Apocalypse. See if it can reform that. They need more help than we do. We got this.
Zeta beam me to wherever the hell Adam Strange is from.
What about you, Mr. Breaker Dan?
What are we done with the prompts, or is this just?
Yeah, this is done with the prompts. Okay. Did you have any other prompt? I mean, all the prompts were stuff I had written down. I wasn't sure if you had any discussion points.
Not necessarily. I kind of already hit on them before, but I guess that was before the recording, so I'll slightly bring them up here. I sent you that panel where Superman's just like, we're going to make society great again. Yeah. And my thought, because you had warned me going in, you're like, oh, it's relevant to like modern, politics. And,
a little bit.
And so I'm like, oh no. And then when I sent you that, you're like, what the fuck is this panel from? I don't even know.
To be fair, you zoomed in on nothing but the text box, so all I got was a text box that says, we're going to make this country right again. And you're like, oh no. And I'm like, who's saying this? What's the context? I don't remember this.
I thought we were going to go down a story, because that's at the very beginning. That's like, very early on. And I'm thinking this is going to be like, oh no, like Trump authoritarian, because like I told you earlier, like Trump didn't make authoritarianism. He just branded it and everybody bought it.
As me and Brandon found out when we read V for Vendetta, it's like, oh hey, there's his phrase used in 1984 to describe a fascist government. Mm-hmm. What a surprise. So yeah, the fact that he's like, we're gonna make this country right again, and then he proceeds to be very authoritarian and mess a lot of things up before finally, at the end, kind of being like, oh, I kind of went down the wrong path. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah, at the end, he starts to realize the error of his ways, but then you get like, Wonder Woman comes along and she pulls the,
Lady Macbeth.
I don't know, it was the gal from Star Trek Next Generation, Best of Both Worlds. I can't remember her name now. I just watched it the other day. The blonde chick that comes in to deal with the Borg, and she like tries to usurp Riker out of their way, and she's just like, well, if you can't make the big decisions, Commander, I suggest you make room for someone who can. And that's basically what Wonder Woman does with Superman. She's like, Clark, if you're not going to do something about this prison and these prisoners, you need to move, because we're going to do it without you.
Yeah. He kind of like loses control of the narrative a little bit, where he's like, I wanted to make things right, but like in a good way. Not in like an authoritarian way. And like, Wonder Woman's like, I'm ancient Greek. We don't give a fuck about being authoritarian. This is how we did it in the ancient times, with swords. You don't like your neighbor, you conquer them.
Though I do like that when Bruce calls her out, it's not like, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. He's like, you're doing the wrong thing for the dumbest reasons.
Yeah, you're not going to get your crown back for doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that does kind of make an interesting point about sort of like authoritarianism in general. Because there's a lot of people, obviously, you don't like authoritarianism because a lot of people suffer under it. But there's, the supporters of it are usually like, well, I'm going to be on the upper class, the one that's inflicting the suffering. So I don't care. Like, as long as I'm fine, I don't care about hurting the other people. And it's like, what you don't understand is that when you do that, you make yourself a big target. Other people see you hurting people, and they want to stop you. So, like with what happened with, like, Germany and all the fascist states and such in World War II, like, when you do that, everyone gangs up on you. So it's like, yeah, you may be good for a while, but just like on this, where like the government eventually comes to nuke everyone, like, you're gonna have troubles with someone bigger eventually. If not now, then at some point.
Or the Tsar from, like, in Russia, and, like, they became immediately
It's in general, like, being an asshole is not just, like, a morally bad decision. It is, like, a tactically bad decision, because people will always try to stomp down assholes.
Like when you're screaming at the minimum wage cashier at the fast food restaurant because they're out of donuts, and there's 5 people in line behind you, I think you're going to lose that argument with the cashier. Either the cashier is going to put you in your place, or somebody bigger than you behind you is going to pour coffee down your pants and kick you out of the store.
Someone's going to film it, and the vast majority of people are going to mock you so endlessly that you'll get cancelled.
On the tickety-tock and Facevine and...
But yeah, so that kind of like agrees, like, you know, this is not... That's the great thing about Batman, is he's not going to make a moral argument about using violence. He's like, I use violence all the time, don't get me wrong, violence is hella fun, but, Diana, you're so violent you're going to get us all killed. I do kind of like that interpretation, because Wonder Woman's always been kind of low on themes. It's hard to tell exactly what she's supposed to be.
Women.
Women, boot, yeah.
I have magic arm things.
So I like this idea
My ovaries give me strength.
I like this idea that she's like this sort of throwback to like ancient thinking, where she would be like, you know, Superman's like, I can't kill, that's morally wrong. And she's like, I was born before Jesus, so morally wrong don't mean anything to me. Like, Plato says it's fine to enslave people.
I mean, though actually in comics, Diana has taken on, and it usually has been this very, like, might makes right kind of person.
Yeah. Well, she kind of goes, it really depends, like, who's writing her. Yeah. She goes wildly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is, like, there's not very many Supermans other than Else's where he's just going around killing people.
Mm-hmm.
But Wonder Woman sometimes is like, no, killing is against the Amazon way. And sometimes she's like, you make war with my blood sword.
Well, admittedly, like, Amazons are definitely warriors. That's the more...
Yeah.
No, I'm just glad that they didn't go for, like, men.
Yeah.
Like, that's my least favorite trope of all of Wonder Woman, is that she is just basically like, why are men like this? Like,
yeah, I don't think she ever, like, really... I think she has one line about, like, the world of men or whatever.
she actually has none.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I also like her cool golden armor.
Mm. Yeah, her cool golden... I like the
at
wings.
the end, where she's got, like, the hawk thing on and stuff, and she's like...
Apparently it's one in Wonder Woman 1984, the movie, but I haven't seen it.
It's okay armor.
Anyway, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had a happy holidays. You enjoyed reading the comic. Thanks for coming.
Mm-hmm.
If you like this rambling mess of whatever, with the burps and everything included.
He's keeping it in.
Yeah,
So.
make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Tell your friends. Spread this around, because we're a very small YouTube channel and need all the help we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Next month, you know what we're reading yet, Brandon?
The phone book!
It was... So I've started reading Isaac Asimov's Foundation. It's very short. I'm about halfway through it. If you want to do that for February, we can, or we could save it for the short month of February. Yeah, if you want to do that for... I was going to say, if you want to do that in January,
what
we
a hard
can.
choice! February or February!
If you want to do that in January, we can. If you want to save it for February, you can. If you never want to do it, we could try to finish up Wheel of Time, because we got one book left, and I really want to finish it. We could do that for January. I don't think we could do that for February.
Okay, yeah. Well,
yeah, to which one?
Memory of Light for January.
Okay, we're finishing up Wheel of Time in January. So, you know, if you want to catch up with us for the whole series review, Dan, you want to read 15 books in the next month?
You want to give me $10 million?
I don't have $10 million.
That's your buying price for reading 15 books in 1 month?
Sure, you got it.
I mean, you're asking a bit much for the
What if
Have you seen how big those books are?
I've read most of them.
Would you do it all in a month? No.
Yeah.
Would you do it for $120?
It's how many books?
15.
How long are they? Like Tom Clancy novels?
You can see them out in my hallway. They're on the top there.
I'll assume they're long. I'm not reading 12 books in a month. I don't have that kind of time.
You can look up the audiobooks. I think most of them are only like 30 hours.
I don't have that kind of... I don't have that much time!
You could also, I won't pay you 120 for it, but you could just read the last book and try to come in at the climax and see if you can understand it.
That wouldn't be the worst idea.
No, please do it.
That would be very interesting. I've often said, like, you can skip the first two, because they kind of feel like prequels. They're a little muddled or whatever. Just start at the middle, like, not the middle, but start on book 3. But I don't think starting on book 15 is the way to go.
I want to see this.
Is there a noticeable shift in the writing style since it's not Robert Jordan anymore?
Not really. It's
noticeable, but not like you have to like pay attention.
You're not going from Wheel of Time to Mistborn. This isn't like two very.
Yeah, he kind of emulates the style. It's mostly, we've talked about this in the other episodes. You could go listen to that if you're interested. Either way, we'll be doing a Memory of Light next month and maybe Foundation in December. Check out that. And until next time,
keep reading.
Have fun.
That's it.
Wrong channel, but I like your spirit.